Haddock is a very versatile and delicious fish. And for this recipe, I'm going to show you how to make some nice haddock goujons. So what you're looking for with haddock is, I usually like to buy it with the skin on, to be honest with you, and then your fishmonger will pin bone it and he'll fillet it for you and he'll skin it. So see the line here? So that's what so it's a round fish, and then you have 2 fillets, and then you have a thumbprint here. And like whenever I go on my seafood trails and I'm chatting to fishermen, first of all, as a chef, I'm totally respectful and I know how hard fishermen work, but I always ask them what's their favorite fish. And so many of them say it's haddock. So I'm going to show you a really lovely way of doing some fish goujons. We're going to jazz up the crumbs. We're going to make a nice pea and pesto puree, which will work really well with that. So I'm going to come back to the fish in a minute. I just want to get my puree on, because one thing about the fish haddock, it cooks really, really quickly, and you can have this made ahead. So for the pea puree, I'm using some frozen peas, which I've defrosted just to speed up the recipe. And then we're going to cover it with some of this beautiful Jersey milk from Cork. So Jersey milk, it's a breed of cow, so it is, and it's just really lovely and rich and creamy. It really is delicious. And then into this, we're going to put a spoonful of pesto. So just some fresh basil pesto in here. Now, if you don't have basil pesto, if you have fresh mint, it works really well, and this will work really well with the goujons. A good pinch of sea salt, and I'm using some Ackle sea salt. And then we're going to stir that through and just let that cook out there just for a couple of minutes. It doesn't take long to make that, and it keeps really well. Okay, for our lovely goujons, so what I'll do is I'll just literally turn down the heat there, and I'll have a little bit of oil on the pan, just preheat. Okay, so when you're making goujons, you want no skin, no bone, and you cut them roughly about a little bit bigger than the size of your thumb. So this is a smaller fillet than what I have here, just cut into these kind of like pieces. So that's it there. Flour, plain flour, 1 egg. We're using a quality assured egg with a little bit of milk, and then just our breadcrumbs. So let's just jazz up the breadcrumbs. First of all, I'm using sesame seeds, and I'm using the white ones and the black ones. And the black ones are a little bit more, not difficult to get, but you can get them just in the Asian supermarket. But they're gorgeous. I really, really am a big fan. To give lovely flavour into that, we're going to put in some lemon zest. Watch the fingers. And a little bit of parmesan. So I think this is a really delicious recipe for the crumbs that will give lovely flavour and texture to the actual haddock. So just using just your grater, just a little bit of, just a small amount, just roughly a couple of teaspoonfuls. And then I like a little bit of parsley, and I'm just using some flat leaf parsley. So you can see all the lovely colour. Now you could put in spices, you could put in turmeric, you could put in the likes of a curry powder. It works really well. So mix this all together just with your hands. So we just have some nice ciabatta breadcrumbs, and then I put in some panko breadcrumbs, which are nice crispy breadcrumbs, and they'll give lovely texture. So you can see how colourful that is. You can have these made ahead, which is fantastic. Okay, so this technique is known as the pane. So we dip it in flour and then into your egg. There's no bones, so remember it's pin boned, and your fishmonger will do that. And then what we're going to do is then just roll it around in the flour and then into your egg. Now, perfect. To give that just a nice little shake, move over away your fish. So when I usually do this, I'm going to keep one hand dry and one hand wet. So what I'll do is just literally like this and lift it out. So that's 1 egg and a little bit of milk in there, and then just pat that, and that's your beautiful goujon. And these can be made ahead. They'll probably keep for about maybe 3-4 days in your fridge, but also what you can do is you can freeze them, because people love things that they can make ahead. So just gently just pat them, and then we're going to put them onto the pan in a moment. So make sure you've it completely covered, if you can, with the egg. So what the flour does, it helps the egg stick to it. Okay, that's lovely. So I'm going to start to place these onto the pan, which I've preheated. Just a little bit of oil, and then the same for this here. Now, so have the pan on low. You don't want it too high of a heat, because you want to get these nice and golden brown. And I'm going to do 6. I won't be serving 6 per portion, but it really depends on the thickness that you actually cut them. Okay, lovely. And try not to crowd the pan too much either. That's really important. So yeah, if you have breadcrumbs left over, which I have, what you can do is you can literally put them into a little bag and you can freeze them, which is perfect. So we just move this out of the way. After handling kind of like raw fish, you've got to wash your hands. So we're going to do that now. So I'll put a little bit of butter onto the pan and we'll just let them just nicely cook. You can always turn up the temperature if you think that it's not getting a nice brown color. So if you use only butter if you only use butter, it's going to burn. So just be aware of that. And with the breadcrumbs, it's like a sponge. It's going to absorb all those lovely kind of juices or the oil. So it is. So let's have a little look here. Yeah, they're perfect. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. So you want them really nice and golden brown. So using the oil and the butter, and that's a really good tip because the oil will stop the butter from burning. So this is the fillet of haddock. Your fishmonger will fillet it, he'll pin bone it for you, and he'll have it all ready. He'll cut it into your goujons, no problem at all. It's a very sustainable fish, it's plentiful, and it's a really versatile fish. So I'm going to be showing you lots of lovely recipes using some haddock. So flip this over here. That's gorgeous. Now I'm going to move it on to a lower ring because the middle ring in my hob here is obviously the fastest. So we'll just turn this down here. And you can see I've used a good non-stick pan. Now if you want to, you can bake these off in the oven. I should have said that. If you're going to do that, have your oven at 180, put parchment paper onto the tray, and then all you do is literally get them over maybe 15 to 20 minutes, 180. And that really depends on the thickness of the fish that you're using. So make sure to turn down the heat. I nearly did there. Okay, this is our pea puree. So we have our pesto, we have our Jersey milk, which is delicious. There's going to be a little bit of water coming out from the frozen peas. We're going to put in some butter into this and then just stir this through. We'll put a little bit of pepper in this. And also with the fish, I forgot to say that in the flour I put a little bit of salt into it, so it was seasoned flour. Okay, so that's cooking up lovely there. Going to turn that down there. The fish, I will show you how you test when it's cooked, don't worry about that. And that's browning up beautiful. I'll just flip it over so that the sides are getting nice and brown too. And look at the sesame seeds, and you can see that. Look at it. Now, I just think homemade fish goujons, you know, fish fingers, whatever you want to call them, they're just so easy to make. And when you get lovely fish that is plentiful, good value for money, sustainable, for me, it ticks all the boxes. We're going to put a little bit of lemon into our mayonnaise. So just some regular mayonnaise and a tiny little squeeze of lemon in here. And then we're going to mix this all together. So just with a spoon. So this can be done ahead too. And of course lemon works really well in that. You can put in some herbs if you want to. You can put in some of the pesto. You can jazz it up if you want to. For the tomatoes, I'm going to use some salt. Good pinch of salt. So these are lovely cherry tomatoes, which are grown in Ireland. Some olive oil. And then into that, I'm going to put in a little bit of basil. So just a couple of lovely little leaves of basil here. And we're going to roll this all up. And we're just going to literally, this proper technique that I'm showing you is a little chiffonade, tiny little strips of fresh basil, and then put that in there. You could put in some vinegar if you wanted to. You could put in some lemon zest if you wanted, just to jazz it up there. Let's have a little look at our fish. Remember, I've turned down the pan. They're very nearly done. We're going to blend. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful and golden brown. So I'll switch the pan off and they'll finish off cooking, which is gorgeous. And then I'll take one out and I'll show you it to make sure that it is cooked. That's really important. Now we're going to blend our pea puree. Before I do that, I just want to literally stir this. So that's the olive oil. You can put some lemon zest on it, a little bit of basil, and a little touch of salt, and that's it. So let's bring over our peas. Turn off the hob there, and I'm just going to literally just blend, say, half of these. I don't need a huge amount of them. I can blend the rest afterwards. Now if you find that it's a little bit too thick, you can add some more of the nice milk or pesto into it. Okay, this is a tiny little mini chopper, which we're using. The lid goes on. And then what we do is just literally blend it. If you want a really smooth puree, you can pass it through a sieve, but no, there's no need for that. So it's just breaking down the texture of the peas. I'll show you now in a moment. And if you add too much milk into it, I use the Jersey milk, you can use cream, I should have said that, you can add more peas, so don't worry about that. Yeah, let's have a little look. That looks good. I'm going to just show you there, Imelda. So I'm going to spoon it. So that's where we have a little bit of texture. So the pesto pea puree works really well with this. Okay, so now we're ready to serve up this. So I'm just going to get my pea puree. I'm going to spoon this just in the little dish, just over to the side. Just literally a couple of spoonfuls of this, and it keeps really well. It'll keep for 4 or 5 days. And if you don't have pesto, some mint would work really, really well. Then our lovely little lemon mayonnaise, spoonful of that. And just kind of smear that all over. I love this. This is some baby jam, and again, it's grown in Ireland, which is fantastic. So we're using as much Irish produce as possible. And then just literally shred this. You can use iceberg. I'm using this nice cos. I think it's so delicious. So a nice, just kind of push that down there, so you're getting lots of lovely flavors. Now this is some toasted Waterford Blah, which is one of the most famous bread rolls that we have in Ireland, and I just think it is so delicious. Now our tomatoes, so 3 or 4 of them. 3 is perfect. And then our goujons. This for me is the star of the show. So we'll just take one out, and I want to show it to you just to check if it's cooked. So you cut it into the center. It's perfectly cooked. Look at that, it's falling apart. It's moist, it's so delicious, and it's so much flavour, and that's exactly what you want. So we're going to serve 3 of these. So I'll pick the nice thick ones. 2 or 3. 3 might be a bit of a mouthful. Maybe actually 2 will be perfect actually for this. And then I'm going to put another little bit more mayonnaise to hold all that together. And that was the lemon mayonnaise. You can use lime. So this is the Blah here. And there we go. So that's my fish goujons. I've turned it into a fish butty, which is full of flavour and texture, and then we have that pesto pea puree. So I hope you really give this a go. Haddock, it's plentiful, sustainable, it's a beautiful fish, so it is good value for money. And if you get your fishmonger, they'll fillet it, they'll pin bone it, and they'll remove the skin. They'll have it all ready, and all you have to do is flour, egg and breadcrumb. Do this recipe, sit down, relax and enjoy the lovely food. Thanks a million.